But since Valet Magazine was saying that it is quick and easy to master and guarantees bigger arms with all the right definition, well, I was all on board. The problem with it is that Valet Magazine has no idea what they're talking about. Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer, where armor is forged through mental, spiritual, and physical preparation. Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer. I am Carl Wimmer, your host for another episode dedicated to your health, your fitness, your longevity, as well as your mental health and your spiritual health. I welcome all of you who work in the first responder community. I welcome all of you who are dedicated to improving your health and living a long, healthful, prosperous life. Today's episode is all about vanity. And I know I am not one who is big on arrogance or vanity or being vain or puffed up. But we all know that we love the look of big biceps, big shoulders, big triceps, the big arms, and having that V taper. And there's no better way to look good at the beach. There's no better way to look good in everyday attire than to have that V taper, be broad at the shoulders like the old James Dean song. I think it was James Dean, the saying 16 tons, Big John, kind of broad at the shoulders and narrow at the hip. Everyone knew not to give no lip to Big John. Okay, so I'm not going to sing it to you, but broad at the shoulders, narrow at the hip. And there's no better way to do that than getting big, bolder shoulders and getting big biceps and triceps, big arms. And so knowing this, I was intrigued to read an article recently by valetmag.com. valetmag.com. I had never heard of this particular magazine, this particular online organization before. So how did I come in contact with this, or how did I come across this article? Well, I subscribe to a daily email called Shift. Fantastic. I really quite enjoy it. They send a daily email in the morning and sometimes has articles that are really quite interesting and very informative. Yeah, sometimes not so much, but they're hitting a wide swath of people. And so what they're doing is quite remarkable in that some of the things they say are interesting, some are not, but other people would find ones that I don't find interesting. And so it's just a useful, entertaining email with a lot of links to different articles that I get to peruse and look at in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee. Well, one of the links that they sent recently was titled, Get Bigger Arms in Minutes. It takes you to a link to the Valet Mag Health and Fitness landing page. And there you see a gentleman with a well-developed arm doing a concentration curl, and the title of the article, Get Bigger Arms in Minutes. These 3 moves are guaranteed to deliver results. Wow, who doesn't want that? Well, let's see what else they say. As I scroll down in this online magazine, I was shocked to read that, quote, this quick and easy to master workout guarantees bigger arms with all the right definition. And best of all, it only takes a few minutes. So I'm starting to get a little bit leery here, because anytime you hear somebody say, hey, you can get strong or big or muscular in just a few minutes a day and you'll be shredded in just a few weeks, you know you're dealing with a snake oil salesman. But since Valet Magazine was saying that it is quick and easy to master and guarantees bigger arms with all the right definition, well, I was all on board. The problem with it is that Valet Magazine has no idea what they're talking about. I don't know if they had, no, they didn't have AI write this, because AI would have got it right. They would have written something that actually made sense. I don't know if one of the staff workers at their organization had a child write this article, but we're going to dive into their 3 exercises, the only 3 exercises you will ever need, according to the Valet Magazine, the only exercises you will ever need to build bigger arms with all the right definition. And what was their first exercise? They say do 5 reps of each exercise as a set. Okay, so 5 reps of each exercise. That's quite low reps for hypertrophy, but let's see. What was their first exercise? Drum roll, hammer curls. Hammer curls to build big biceps. Any personal trainer, any kinesiologist, any bodybuilder who is worth their salt would not rank hammer curls in the top 8 most effective exercises for biceps. Hammer curls are one of the least effective exercises for biceps. Yet this magazine, Valet Mag, ranks it as number 1. Why am I so harsh on hammer curls? Because we're talking about vanity muscles here. We are talking about building up big, bulging biceps. And hammer curls do not focus on big, bulging biceps. And neither do rope curls. The problem with rope curls and hammer curls is it focuses on the wrong muscle groups. Hammer curls emphasize the brachialis, which is part of the forearm. Now, if you want big Popeye forearms, and your forearms, if they're small and you want bigger forearms, by all means, do hammer curls. But the hammer curl focuses on the brachialis muscle primarily, which is part of the forearm. Now, it does, in fact, focus on a small part of the upper arm, but it focuses almost exclusively on the brachioradialis. What is the brachioradialis? Well, spoiler alert, it's not the bicep. It is a small muscle underneath the bicep that accounts for almost nothing when it comes to having showy, big, muscular arms. Now, the brachioradialis is actually perhaps the strongest muscle in the upper arm when it comes to closing that extension, that lever from the fist to the shoulder. That's its job, but it is not a large, showy muscle. So it's not one that you would want to focus on to build big biceps. And the hammer curls focus on these 2 muscles. Whilst those 2 muscles kind of contribute to overall arm thickness and definitely strength. If you want strength, hammer curls they're great. But that's not what this article is saying. This article is saying that if you want big, bulging, beautiful biceps, then do hammer curls. And that is absolutely wrong. Hammer curls do not maximize bicep peaks or development nearly as much as other curl variations that we'll get into in just a minute. One of the major issues is the limited bicep activation. The neutral grip of a hammer curl with the palms facing each other reduces the direct tension of the biceps brachii. The peak of your bicep that you want to grow, hammer curls reduces the tension on that exact muscle compared to doing regular supinated curls. Supinated means the palms are facing the sky, the ceiling. That's how you stress the bicep brachii, not by having a neutral hammer curl position. That is the same problem with rope curls. Rope curls are great for building the forearms, not so great at building peak biceps. Finally, another problem with the hammer curl is the reduced range of motion. Hammer curls have a slightly shorter range of motion than some of the other curls that I'm going to recommend. But you got to understand, one of the main functions of the bicep is forearm supination. What does that mean? One of the functions of the bicep muscle is rotating your palm to the ceiling, rotating your palm upward. That is a primary function of the bicep brachii. Hammer curls avoids that motion altogether by taking a neutral grip, meaning, once again, you're not engaging the bicep through the full functional range. It is not ideal for peak development. If your goal is to develop prominent bicep peaks, do not listen to the Valet Mag article about hammer curls, because they're wrong. If your goal is prominent bicep peaks, there are many exercises that are far better, starting with spider curls. The spider curl is conducted by laying on a bench face down at a 45-degree angle. You're on your feet, standing up with your chest and stomach laying on the bench at a 45-degree angle or even steeper. And you then use full range of motion in a full supinated curling fashion. The spider curl should make up a large portion of your bicep workout routine. Another exercise that I like a lot is a dumbbell curl, starting in a pronated position. It's a standing bicep curl, starting in a pronated position, meaning the palms are facing towards your body. And as you bring the dumbbells up, you supinate them all the way around and even a little bit extra on the outside and then back down. Now you say, well, isn't that hitting a hammer curl? It's hitting every possible head of the bicep and the upper arm. That is a personal preference of my own, but it is far, far superior to hammer curls by themselves. I also quite enjoy incline dumbbell curls, using dumbbells again, or cable curls. I like doing most of my bicep exercises standing up, because in a episode some time ago, I talked about using poor form as one of the 7 deadly sins of the gym. However, I also mentioned that if you use a little bit of controlled inertia and momentum can help you work out harder. So I like to stand up when I'm doing my curls, maybe cable curls. I love cable curls. And you'll do 8 to 12 to 15 reps of cable curls in perfect form. And then when you fail, you may just give it just a little bit of English just to get 2 more, and then you're good. So you're not going way out of form. You're not getting crazy here, but you're just adding a little bit of English, a little bit of momentum to get yourself a couple more reps just to push it that much harder. So standing cable curls, standing bicep curls, seated or standing dumbbell curls, preacher curls, all of them are better than hammer curls for building biceps. The next exercise that Valet Mag emphasizes is overhead tricep extensions. I don't have a problem with overhead tricep extensions. I have a problem with their rep range. Their rep range being 5 repetitions per set is not enough time under tension. It is not ideal for hypertrophy. Hypertrophy meaning the growth of muscle tissue. But overhead tricep extensions, by and large, are a fine tricep exercise. I don't have an issue with it. However, the third exercise that these experts of muscle growth give to the world, bless the world with, to build massive shoulders, those big, broad shoulders, those wide shoulders, is perhaps the worst shoulder exercise ever created by man. The front dumbbell raise. Now, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on the front dumbbell raise, but I do not like the front dumbbell raise. And when I saw that, that's when I decided to do this podcast. Now, what's wrong with the front dumbbell raise? Let's start off with the fact that it doesn't broaden your shoulders. The front dumbbell raise, you see the video, you see the picture. It's you raise the dumbbell in front of you. It primarily targets the anterior deltoid, or the front of the shoulder, which is responsible for shoulder flexion, which means raising your arms in front of you. While this muscle is absolutely important for overall shoulder development and health, it contributes almost nothing to the width of your shoulders. It does not build that V taper. It does not make you look broader in the shoulders. The muscle mainly contributing to the width of the shoulder is the lateral deltoid or the side deltoid, which front raises do not work. It largely neglects. There is almost no lateral deltoid activation when it comes to doing a front dumbbell raise. To create that broad shoulder appearance, you need to emphasize the side deltoids, the sides, the outside of your shoulders. That means the front dumbbell raise is one of the worst exercises when it comes to building broad shoulders. The biggest issue I have with the exercise, though, is that the front deltoids are already vastly overworked by a majority of you going to the gym. You are working the front deltoid every single time you work your chest. Why? Because I know you're doing bench presses, and the bench press works the chest, the triceps, and the front deltoids. I know you're doing push-ups. I know you're doing dips. I know you're doing push-downs. I know you're doing pec deck. You're doing flies. You're doing cable crossovers. And guess, besides the chest, the pectoral muscles, guess what secondary muscle gets hit the most with all of those exercises? You guessed it, the front deltoids. So you're already overworking your front delts, and then they say, come on in and do your front deltoid, your front delt raises to work them even more. Makes no sense whatsoever. You shouldn't be focusing on shoulder day. If you have a shoulder day, which you should, if you have a day where you're focusing on shoulders or you have it worked in with another day, I do a push-pull leg split. I do shoulders on my push day. So I already know my front deltoids are being worked on my bench press and my push downs, my dips, my cable crossovers, everything else, my pec deck. So I do no specific front deltoid work. They're already getting worked. Additionally, neglecting the rear deltoid, the back of your shoulder, eventually makes you look funny. Now, many of us will never be big enough that people will notice. But if you're a professional bodybuilder, if you are in bodybuilding at all, as far as competitive bodybuilding, they know, work the rear deltoid, work the rear delt, because if you have weak rear delts, it is very obvious and very noticeable. Shoulder width, the broadness of your shoulders benefits from a balanced approach, focusing on the rear delts as well, meaning rear delt rows, rear flies, reverse flies, specific types of face pulls. They have to be done in a very specific manner to make them really hit the rear delts. But I do band pulls, where I have a band and I pull it straight out to work the rear delts. We want a three-dimensional shoulder appearance, not one-dimensional. And if you follow the advice of this article, you are building a one-dimensional shoulder. It is very inefficient. If your goal is shoulder width, front raises are very inefficient. You would be much better off doing lateral raises. Okay, instead of in the front, go to the side. Do side lateral raises, or doing Arnold presses. Those two exercises provide far more bang for your buck when it comes to shoulder aesthetics. So I'll give you, besides those two, the lateral raises, which are my favorite shoulder exercise for the outside delt, and the Arnold press, which is not one of my favorites, but it's one that is very common and people like to do it. Cable lateral raises, maintaining constant tension on the side delt. So using cables to do the lateral raise, that really works because the cable is always pulling and you have to control it all the way through. Overhead presses engage all three heads of the deltoid, and so better than front raises. And so there are many, many, many shoulder exercises that are far better than the front shoulder raise that is recommended as one of the three exercises to get you shredded and massive shoulders guaranteed. So what's the message here? The message here is you need to be very cautious as to who you listen to. If you listen to the wrong people, the next thing you know is you're going to be throwing money at a V-shred training program because he guarantees to get you looking so shredded and good looking like him within just a few short weeks. You're going to be doing front lateral raises for your shoulders. You're going to be doing hammer curls for your biceps. And 6 months down the road, when you have made very little progress, you're going to be very disappointed and you're going to quit going to the gym. Be very, very careful whose advice you listen to. You need to be very deliberate in who you listen to and what you listen to. To recap this article and this podcast, front lateral raises for shoulders are not it when it comes to building your shoulders. There are multiple other shoulder exercises that we talked about that are far better. Hammer curls are not even a bicep exercise. They are an exercise that is very good at building your brachialis, very good at working your brachioradialis, but not very good at working the bicep. So again, multiple exercises that are far better that we listed in this podcast. So I just encourage you, go out there, work hard, lift hard, and be careful to who you listen to. I'm Carl Wimmer, First Responder Fitness, reminding you to be good to yourself, be good to others, and as always, Stay safe.